Jeff. Wow, what an introduction, and thanks for getting my surname right. All right, so I want to start with one major observation about commitment. That is, we just don't like making commitments. We just don't like it. It's so unnatural for us to commit to anything. And I have so many examples. First example, night shift. Okay, I've posted the sign-up link 2 weeks ago. We've started promoting it 2 weeks ago. But 80% of you only signed up 2 days ago. And I know that I'm looking at the sign-ups every day. For the remaining 20%, some of them signed up yesterday, today, and some of you just basically walked in without signing up, which is fine, I totally appreciate your presence right here. Another example that I've got is Netflix. So I have issues to commit to a movie because it would cost me 3 hours. So I don't like to watch movies on Netflix. But I find it perfectly okay when I only need to spend 1 hour to watch one episode of one TV show. That's why I'll always go for TV shows. But as you all know, eventually I'll just watch the entire series of that TV show, and by then 20 hours are gone. So that's Netflix. That's commitment issue with Netflix. Third example, job. If right now I'm saying that I'm giving you a job that you really, really like, but you have to do it for the rest of your life, will you accept that? Chances are you won't, because how am I supposed to know if that's indeed the right fit? I'm not gonna do this for life. Maybe I'll try it out 2 years, 3 years. At least there is a clause allowing me to resign anytime. I'm not gonna do it for life, like just based on your description for today. Example number 4, relationship. How am I supposed to know if that's the right person to commit to? Let's go on a few more dates. Let's give it a few more years. Let's observe a bit longer. Well, I just can't commit right now. We would say, how am I supposed to know if this is right for me? How am I supposed to know if this is right? I mean, it's not like I don't like committing. It's not like I can't commit, but I'm not sure if this is right for me. That's the question. But I would say the real question is, how would I know if there aren't any better options? Now, I have a friend who never commits to anything. Seriously, she never commits. Say on Wednesday, if I ask her, hey, you want to come to church with me on Sunday? She would be like, it's only Wednesday. How am I supposed to know my schedule on Sunday? Fine. I asked her again on Friday. Hey, are you coming to church this Sunday? And she'll be like, it's only Friday. How am I supposed to know my schedule on Sunday? Fine. So when will she commit? On Sunday at 3:29 p.m., 1 minute before the last service available, she will then tell me, I think I can come to church. Why? Because all other options are gone by then. She can be 100% sure that she's not missing out on any other options. So therefore, she can come to church. In fact, that's the game that we had at the entrance too. You are to pick the biggest candy without knowing if there are better options along the road. And in fact, I know some of you kind of cheated. You've picked one already, but then you go to the next table. Hey, I actually like that more. Can I swap it? And then the greeter would tell you, no, you can't. That's the rule of the game. In fact, we all struggle with that. And people are saying that, isn't that like commitment? Well, it's only a candy, that's okay. But what if we project that same thinking to relationship? Isn't that frightening? But I would add on to that. Beneath our fear of commitment is actually a cost and benefit analysis. Whenever we struggle with commitment, we are actually doing a cost and benefit analysis in our heart, in our mind. So if I am to commit to option A now, I get all the benefits of option A, but then I couldn't get all the potential benefits of options B, C, D, E, F that I didn't choose. So these are the costs. Well, but the thing is, possibilities are endless. So the potential benefits of all the options that you didn't choose will always be greater than the benefit of the option that you chose. That means it always seems like the costs are higher than the benefit. That means I shouldn't commit. You are actually weighing the costs and benefits all the time. And what's more, once you commit to an option, usually there's a set of obligations that follows. And those are costs as well. So looking at this analysis, and you will conclude that, no, it's not a good idea to commit now. Well, I would say there are at least 2 flaws if we use this kind of analysis in a relationship context. First, you are assuming that there are always better options ahead, which is not exactly true all the time. The second flaw is you are reducing relationship to consumerism. You are reducing relationship to consumerism. You're assuming that relationship is all about picking the best deal available, maximizing my benefit, minimizing my costs. That's relationship. That's what I want. You are reducing it to consumerism. But relationship isn't designed that way. It shouldn't be consumerism. I do agree that when you commit to a relationship, there are certain costs. Yes, you're forgoing other options. You're signing up for a bunch of obligations. I totally agree to the costs. And in fact, I personally am going through that. I was married last year, so right now I've been married for 6 months. And do you know what comes with marriage? Laundry. Laundry work, double the laundry, and I'm serious about that. So I did a bit of maths. I have been married for 6 months. That's 27 weeks. Every week I'm doing 2 laundry works, so that's 52 laundry works in total. Every time 20 pieces of garments. So far I have handled over 1,000 pieces of garments of myself and my husband since I'm married. That's a lot of obligations. That's a huge cost. And of course, I mean, there are still other costs, other obligations that comes with marriage, and those are true. But what I want to say is the benefits of a committed relationship are actually higher. And even the Bible said so. And that's what I'm going to share tonight. Why are there so many benefits when it comes to committing to a relationship? But before I start, I want to set the scene. The focus for tonight will be marriage, because that's the ultimate kind of commitment to relationship that we are talking about. You can't be even closer to a person than marrying to him. So marriage is the kind of topic that we're focusing on. But even if you're single, if you're dating, this is still relevant because the same thinking applies. Understanding what the goal is will be important for you, because if you're sitting here, I'm assuming that that's your goal as well. You want to find a godly spouse, you want to develop a God in a healthy marriage, assuming that that's your goal. If your goal is to stay single forever and be content about it like Joshua Mack, then you won't be here. So, the goal we are talking about is marriage, and understanding what this is and understanding what it takes you to that goal will impact on your choices now, will impact on your decision making now, whether to commit, how to commit, when to commit, who to commit. So tonight, I will focus on these 2 questions. What to commit and why committing? What to commit and why should I commit? First, the what. As I said, I'm focusing on marriage. Now, what's your impression of marriage? In the Hong Kong context, what's your impression of marriage? I have at least 2 observations. First, it's something that your parents really want you to do. Because when you're single, they would ask, when are you dating? When you're dating, they will ask, when are you getting married? When you're married, when are you getting your first child, second child, third child? And after your children have grown up, the cycle repeats. So basically, it's a stage of life that seems that, like, my parents really want me to go through. It's a box to be checked. Second observation, it's a bit sad, but it seems that people are thinking that marriage is kind of reversible. In case something went wrong, you can still get a divorce, right? In fact, there are over 16,000 divorce cases in Hong Kong every year. Just in Hong Kong, 1 year, more than 60,000. And the divorce rate is actually beyond 30% now in Hong Kong. It's sad, and it wasn't supposed to be like that. Marriage wasn't supposed to be reversible. It isn't supposed to be just a box to be checked. In fact, when marriage was first designed, it is a covenant. Marriage is a covenant. Now, covenant is a legal term. Yes, I was a lawyer, but I'm not going to talk about the legal definition here because it's boring. I'm going to talk about what covenant means in the Bible. So whenever you see a covenant in the Bible, you can see this. It is essentially a binding promise made between 2 parties in a chosen relationship for a common goal. Let's break it down. It's a binding promise. So there's a set of defined rights and obligations, and you're bound to it. You should adhere to it. It's for a chosen relationship. You don't just go into a covenant accidentally. It's by an active choice. And whenever you see a covenant in the Bible, it's always relational. It's always about a relationship. And it's for a common goal. It's always forward-looking. It's always about the future. The promise is about what the future has to offer to you. So that's a covenant. Now, the most famous covenant in the Bible, of course, is the Rainbow Covenant. We all know about that. It's recorded in Genesis chapter 9. I establish my covenant with you. Never again will all life be destroyed by the waters of a flood. This is the sign of the covenant I am making between me and you and every living creature with you, a covenant for all generations to come. I have set my rainbow in the clouds, and it will be the sign of the covenant between me and the earth. It has all the elements of the covenants when you look at it. First is a binding promise. God promised that he won't destroy the earth again by a flood. And it's for a chosen relationship. It said it's between God and Noah and every living creature. And it's forward-looking. It talks about all generations to come. It's a powerful covenant. So what about marriage? Let's look at a wedding vow. I mean, we've all heard of it, and I've just got this from Google, so it's very common. I take you to be my husband/wife, and so on and so forth. And in fact, you can see all the elements of a covenant there. It is a binding promise. You are promising that you are taking that person as your spouse for the rest of your life, for better or for worse. It is for a chosen relationship. You choose that person, it's relational, and it's forward-looking. Wedding vows are never about today only. It's not like, I love you now, and I love you too now, and that's it. Wedding vow is always about the future. For better, for worse, I am with you, I'm taking care of you for the rest of my life. It's forward-looking. In fact, when you are making a wedding vow to the other person, you are establishing a covenant with that other person. Now, this sounds really, really good, but you might be asking, who said marriage has to be a covenant? Who said so? Well, let's look at the very, very first marriage ever recorded in the Bible. Surprise, surprise, it involves Adam and Eve. So let's go to Genesis chapter 2. It begins from verse 20, I believe. So I'll just read that out for us. But for Adam, no suitable helper was found. So the Lord God caused the man to fall into a deep sleep. And while he is sleeping, he took one of the man's ribs and then closed up the place with flesh. Then the Lord God made a woman from the rib he had taken out of the man, and he brought her to the man. The man said, "This is now bone of my bones and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. That is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh." Adam and his wife were both naked, and they felt no shame. That's the very first marriage ever recorded. And I want to focus on verse 24. This is why a man leaves his father and mother and is united to his wife, and they become one flesh. That's the NIV. Well, I know that if you've been in a care group before, if you've been in a Bible study before, there's always one person in that group that doesn't use NIV. They will be like, "Oh, I'm using ESV, it's much more accurate." Or let's look at NASB, I grew up in the American, But well, yeah, so whenever this person reads the Bible first for the group, it's always different from the version that I'm holding because I'm using NIV. But anyway, let's go a step even further. Let's go for KJV. Therefore, I heard a yes over here, so there's a fan of KJV over here. Therefore, shall a man leave his father and his mother and shall cleave unto his wife, and they shall be one flesh. The word united actually means to cleave. That's the kind of connection between Adam and Eve that we're talking about. But what does cleave mean? Now we have to go to the original Hebrew of this word. And this word is called davak. It means to cleave, to adhere, to be glued to something. Literally, you're being stuck with that person, inseparable. It means to unite to someone through a covenant, a binding promise, an oath. So when we were talking about Adam and Eve being cleaved together, it's not just living together, it's not just spending time with one another. It's really about being united through a covenant. That was how the very, very first marriage was designed and was established. They are being united in a covenant. In fact, there are a lot more verses in the Old Testament that talks about marriage as a covenant. So I have two examples here. They are pretty negative examples, but the main point is that you can see the word covenant right there. So the first is from Malachi. It is because the Lord is the witness between you and the wife of your youth. You have been unfaithful to her, though she is your partner, the wife of your marriage covenant. And then in Proverbs, wisdom will save you also from the adulterous woman, from the wayward woman with her seductive words, who has left the partner of her youth and ignored the covenant she made before God. Now, these are pretty negative examples of marriages, but you could see that it's very clear that marriage is a covenant. And there's more. It's a covenant made before God. In fact, that is what made Christian marriage so special, because there are two sets of covenants involved. When you're getting married, you're making a horizontal covenant with your spouse. And when you're doing that before God, you are also making a vertical covenant with God. You are promising God that you are taking this person as your spouse, and you're going to take care of him or her for the rest of your life. There are two sets of binding promises, and that's why Christian marriage is basically like a triangle. Two sets of covenants, commitments, right there. Now, all looks great, but you might be asking, why should I buy into this? Why should I commit? This looks good, but does that really apply to me? Remember what we said at the beginning. We don't like committing. The costs are so high, the benefits are so low. Why should I commit? So now, I forgot to show this. This is the triangle that I'm talking about. So now I will go on to tell you the why. Why it's a good idea to commit? Because commitment inflames love. Now this sounds very abstract, and it will sound even more abstract as I go through the following Bible passage with you, because that's exactly what Kevin said. It's a Bible passage that we don't really read, but it's in the Bible. It's actually from Song of Songs. So Song of Songs, it's a love poem. It's about a relationship between a man and a woman. They're deeply in love with one another, and I mean they're really deeply in love. You can look at the wordings. He said, "How beautiful you are, my darling. Oh, how beautiful, your eyes are doves." And then she said, "Oh, how handsome you are, my beloved. Oh, how charming, and our bed is verdant." So it's very passionate. And yeah, they're really deeply in love. And sometimes things get really, really passionate. Look at this. "I belong to my beloved, and its desire is for me. Come, my beloved, let us go to the countryside. Let us spend the night in the villages." Whenever I read that, I'll go like, oh, what's going to happen? Is that even biblical? So, well, but not to worry, because whenever things get really, really passionate in this book of Song of Songs, this verse will always appear. "Do not arouse or awaken love until it so desires." Every time their love gets so passionate and intense, this verse will appear like a pause. In fact, this verse has appeared for 3 times throughout the book of Song of Songs. It basically means, slow down. Don't rush it. You should allow time for your relationship to grow and to mature. Don't be casual about it. You should wait until love is mature. You should wait until the right timing before proceeding to even further intimacy. Don't be casual about it. Don't rush it. So when exactly can I arouse or awaken love? When exactly do I know if the relationship is mature enough? The answer lies in chapter 8. And that's the main verse that I want to look at tonight. Chapter 8 from verse 6. "Place me like a seal over your heart, like a seal on your arm. For love is as strong as death, its jealousy unyielding as the grave. It burns like blazing fire, like a mighty flame. Many waters cannot quench love, rivers cannot sweep it away." Now it starts with this, seal. Place me like a seal over your heart. What does a seal mean? It actually has a very special meaning in the Old Testament context. A seal means a public commitment to comply with a treaty or promise. It's public. You're making this commitment in front of other people. It's a symbol of identity. If you remember the story between Tamar and Judah, then you will understand. Tamar is asking for Judah's seal, just so that later on she could prove to others that it's Judah who had made her pregnant. And then it is also an intention to be inseparable from that person. When I say I place my seal over you, I'm saying that I don't want to be separated from you. So the woman in the book of Song of Songs is basically saying, I don't want to be separable from you. I want to commit to you now, exclusively, as a public commitment. She wants to commit to this relationship. And what's the result? We can see that love becomes really, really strong in the sense that it's like blazing fire, mighty flame. Waters cannot quench it, rivers cannot sweep it away. That's the result following the commitment. What makes their love so strong? So strong to the extent that even rivers cannot sweep it away. It's not the initial kind of attraction, it's not the kind of passion, it's not the kind of romantic feeling. It's actually the commitment that makes their love so strong. It is their commitment to be with one another, to be in the binding promise, to be inseparable from one another, that makes their love so strong. But why? This is the next question. Why does commitment make love so strong? When we find out the answer, I would say we need to go to our deepest yearning. Our deepest yearning is this. We yearn to be known and to be loved. We yearn to be known and to be loved. And I really like how Tim Keller puts it. To be loved but not known, it's comforting but superficial. To be known and not loved is our greatest fear. Deep down in our heart, we want both. We want to be known for who we are, and we want to be loved for who we are. We want to be our true self. And I know that you can relate to it because even in night shift, I know that you want to just come and sit down and listen and be yourself and chill, and that's fine. And I know that you hate it when we put you into small groups with strangers, giving you a bunch of questions to discuss, and then you have to socialize, you have to pretend to be a nice person, knowledgeable person, and it's just so tiring. Give me a break, it's a Friday night. So that's why there's no, random grouping tonight, because I know how it feels. I know that we all want to be our true self. That's comforting. But then we can only be our true self when we feel safe. In fact, vulnerability is only possible in a safe space. We don't just reveal our true self to anybody at any place. We only do that when we feel safe. So what's a safe place when it comes to relationship? Now imagine with me, say you are in a relationship right now with a person, but it's not committed. Nothing is committed. Either of you can leave anytime without any reason. Is that a good thing? Let's go back to the cost and benefit analysis. What is the benefit? Flexibility. I could leave anytime. If I see a better option, I go for it. That's great. So what are the costs? In fact, when we are talking about costs, we are basically asking, what is keeping you two together? If there's no commitment, no promises, what is keeping you two together? It's probably the romance, the passion, the feeling, the attraction, which you have to refuel it constantly. These things would wear out as time goes. These things would have to be refueled constantly, and you basically need to prove your benefit on a daily basis as well. Because you have to win that person's cost and benefit analysis. You have to prove to that person that the benefits of being with you will be higher than not being with you. That's why you should be with me. So that's the kind of struggle that you have to go through, because there's nothing to bind you two together. That's why you are constantly in this cost and benefit analysis. You have to prove your worth every day. And that's why I think cohabitation doesn't work, because nothing is really binding you two together. And both of you, either of you, can leave anytime. Both of you are constantly weighing the cost and benefit to be with one another. In fact, I call this survival mode. You have to be on guard. You have to show that your benefits are higher than the cost. Once the costs get higher than the benefit, then the relationship becomes fragile. You are in survival mode. And isn't that tiring? Having to constantly prove your worth is actually a high cost. And in fact, in survival mode, your relationship can't grow. Imagine if you can't be your true self in this relationship. How do you expect the other person to love you for who you are? The relationship can't grow if we are in survival mode. All right, so am I saying that we should all just sign a paper of marriage, get married, and then everything will be miraculously resolved? Well, yes and no, because it's not about the paper, it's more about the covenant. As I said, marriage is a covenant, horizontal covenant with your spouse, vertical covenant with God. And with that binding promise, it's a commitment for life. And this creates a safe space. It creates a safe space that allows vulnerability, a safe space that allows you to be who you are. And with that, it moves you out of survival mode. So let me explain more. Why is it a safe space? Because you no longer need to win the other person's approval on a daily basis. That's not what keeping you two together. It's the commitment, it's the covenant that are keeping you two together. You don't need to constantly prove your worth day by day, minute by minute. You don't have to do it anymore. And you know the relationship will last because the time frame is already defined in the covenant. It's for life. It's not like it's expiring next year or 3 years down the road. It's for life. And you need that assurance of time frame before you can be really vulnerable, because that's how we function. Imagine that you're joining a care group, but you know that it will be dismantled in 3 months' time. How much of your true self will you reveal to this group? Probably not a lot. How much time and energy and love will you invest in this group? Probably not much. Or it's just like visiting a coffee shop. If you're just visiting once, you probably don't want to reveal who you are to the barista. But if you know that you're living in that neighborhood, you're visiting this coffee shop every morning, you probably will want to do some chit chats with the barista and that just to have some sort of friendship, because you know that it will last. That's just how we function. We want longevity. We yearn for permanence. We even yearn for eternity because we want good things to last. And more importantly, this is the environment that allows us to be who we are. Vulnerability is only possible when it's safe and when the relationship is lasting. Therefore, a committed relationship gives you that space. It allows you to be vulnerable. You can be your true self in a committed relationship. And that's also true for the other person. He or she can be his or her true self. And therefore, you can love him or her for who he or she truly is. This is mutual. This is reciprocal. And with that, you no longer have to be in survival mode. You can now shift your attention from surviving to nurturing. You have that capacity now. You can spend your effort and attention and love to really care for one another, appreciate one another, understand one another, submit to one another, serve one another. That's how a relationship can grow. It doesn't just grow by feelings. It grows because of constant active behaviors for one another. So by now you can see the benefits are actually pretty high. It might be even higher than the cost. And in fact, at this stage, you don't even need the cost and benefit analysis anymore, because your yearning can be satisfied. Your deepest yearning to be known and to be loved can be satisfied. You no longer need to calculate the benefits and the cost on a daily basis. That's how commitment inflames relationship and love. Let's go back to the Song of Songs. It starts with a seal, a public commitment, a marriage covenant with a safe space created. It allows you to be who you are. It allows you to love that person for who he is or who she is. It allows a relationship to grow, to thrive. It can empower that relationship so that waters cannot quench it, rivers cannot sweep it away. It makes it powerful. That's why commitment inflames love, strengthens love, empowers love. That's how commitment inflames love, strengthens love, empowers love. So up till now, you might be thinking, well, commitment sounds great, it's perfect, it's wonderful, but there are still some kind of practical questions that I have in mind. Say, when should I commit to a relationship? Or, how would I know if that's the right person to commit? Or, well, I'm always ready, it's him who is not ready, it's her who doesn't want to commit, not my problem, what should I do? Well, honestly, I don't have all the answers to all the specific questions, but when I look through the practical questions, I realized that the previous night shifts have kind of answered them all. So, when should I commit? Go watch April night shift, because in that night shift, we've talked about you should be faithful in your current season. I mean, commitment is great, but still, you don't want to rush to it, because there is something special for each season of life. You should be faithful in your current season. Don't make transitioning from one stage to another your life goal. That's night shift in April. And of course, when should I commit would also depend on who that person is. So question 2, how would I know if that's the right person? Go watch the night shift last month, because Josh talked about what that person should be. Is that a person who is renewed by faith in Jesus Christ? Is that person able to attain the standard in Ephesians 5? Submit to one another out of reverence of Christ. Can he or she do it? Or is he or she striving to do that? That's an indicator. What he said was, stand firm and choose wisely. I think that's what he said. Stand firm and choose wisely. All right, so what should I do if it's him or her who doesn't commit? This night shift is talking about this problem. I mean, you can try to find out what is his or her cost and benefit analysis. Why do you think the cost is so high? Or why do you think the benefit is so low? Why are you thinking like that? and, just send this recording to him or her. That's fine. Well, I'm not trying to self-promote here, but I'm trying to say that we package these 3 night shifts together for a reason. It's a series. It addresses issues of different stages, whether you're single, you're dating, you're married, and these issues are not only relevant when you are at that stage. It's all relevant right now for all of you. And of all the issues at different stages, of all the ways that we should handle them, there are biblical truths behind these kind of suggestions that we're giving to you as to how to handle these issues and how to tackle these problems. We might not find all the practical answer in one go, but the Bible has surely tell us what is relationship and what is love when it's first designed. And that should be our goal. To sum it up, what I've talked about tonight, the what? Marriage, it's a horizontal covenant with your spouse, vertical covenant with God, lifelong promise, binding promise, lifelong commitment. And why should I commit? Because commitment inflames love. It creates that safe space for you so that you can be known and you can be loved for who you are. You are no longer in survival mode. You don't even need a cause and benefit analysis by this stage. And in fact, isn't that how God loves us? Isn't that how God loves us? He has made so many covenants with his people. He has made covenants with Noah, Abraham, and Moses, and Israelites, and so on and so forth. But people always failed him. We've always broken so many promises. And yet, God sent Jesus to die for us. Through Jesus, all the previous covenants were fulfilled. And through Jesus, a new covenant is being created. So we've often heard about this verse whenever we take communion. It's recorded in Matthew chapter 26, verse 28. At the Last Supper, Jesus said, "This is my blood of the covenant, which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sin." Blood of the covenant for the forgiveness of sin. God made this new covenant through Jesus with us. If we are living in this new covenant, our sins are forgiven, and we can live with God in eternity. We are in this new covenant. We are in this safe space right now. We can be as vulnerable as we want before God. We are known to him, and we are loved by him for who we are. Isn't that amazing? That's the power of covenant in relationships. God loves us so much that he created covenants with us. He already committed before we are. He already committed before we are. So, what do you think about commitment now? How would you look at it now? Remember this question that we asked at the beginning. What does commitment mean to you? Right now, I want to end this time with a discussion time or a reflection time. As I said, I won't force you to go into groups with strangers, so if you're coming on your own, you can do a self-reflection. If you're coming with your friends, feel free to discuss with your friends. In fact, let's look at the costs and let's look at the benefits. Is there anything that hinders you from committing to a relationship right now? Benefits. Is there anything that hinders you from believing or receiving the power of a covenantal relationship? In fact, these are two sides of the same coin, and the reason might be the same. It could be because of your upbringing, your previous experience, traumas, identity issues, so on and so forth. But what we want to do is that you can try to identify the why. That could be your first step to commit. It's to find out the hurdle, find out that obstacle inside of you. What is preventing you from committing? There might be a lot of solutions to that. Could be a counseling session, prayer session, fellowship, prayer, so on and so forth. But we want this to be your first step, to find out why are you afraid or unwilling to commit. Now let's spend a few minutes time to reflect or to discuss. Afterwards, the worship band will come out again and we will sing another song.